We talked about faith. Now, what do we have faith in? That's faith in Jesus. But we're going to look at Jesus from a really cool perspective, and that's through the Gospel of John. John does a really interesting thing of shedding light on who Jesus is. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So when our kids learn racing, the very first thing they learn is not, believe it or not, how to drive the car. It's not really which is the gas and which is the brake. It's not how to put their helmet on or how to put their gloves on or their fire suit. And it's not the line they have to run when they're driving the car. None of that. In fact, one of the very first things that every kid has to learn is the flags, because it's a safety thing. They all know what the checkered flag means, but what does the white flag mean? What does the green flag mean? What does the yellow flag mean? What does the red flag mean? Or the black, or what we call the meatball flag? What do all of those things mean? Well, those also translate into lights. Most tracks have a light that helps drivers know a little bit sooner if there's a caution flag or if it's the green flag. And every kid knows that when that green light goes off, that it's go time. And when the yellow light comes on, then it's slow down time. Or when that red light comes on, if the track has it, then it means we need to absolutely stop our cars on the track. It's a safety thing. And the very first thing we want kids to learn is something that helps keep them and other drivers safe, right? They have to know what these lights mean. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, is light. Now, before we go any further, take a minute, give this video hopefully a like, and subscribe to the channel. Because I don't want you to miss what's coming up. Last time that we had our series was on faith. And this new one that we're starting with, this first video, is about Jesus. So we're going to start from the very beginning of John's gospel. John chapter 1, verse 1, in the beginning. Kind of is a really interesting callback to the very beginning of the Bible. Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created. Well, John says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. It's a really interesting sort of call to what was written in the Old Testament to how John is now relating that back to who Jesus is, suggesting to us that Jesus was there from the very beginning. In the beginning was the Word. The Word is himself, Jesus. And the Word was God, because Jesus is God, giving us the idea that it's Jesus who created everything. And what John is going to do, he's going to shed a whole bunch of light on who Jesus is. And he's going to do that by giving us some really cool I am statements. And Jesus is going to say things like, I am the bread of life, and I am the true vine, and I am the resurrection and the life. He says a whole bunch of these really cool statements signifying to the people listening just who he actually is. And when we take a look at it, we can really get an interesting deep dive into who Jesus is and the light that he brings as John sheds light on him. Light's an interesting thing. I marvel at what we almost take it for granted, right? If this video, if it's not lit properly, then you can't see me and it looks terrible. I'm in a hotel room and I don't know where everything is. I'm not used to it. And so if I have to get up in the middle of the night and it's dark in here, then I can't see anything. And I'm fumbling around trying not to, to stub my toe or to hit something, which I have done several times now. And, but if I step into the bathroom or another room where there's light, then it's almost blinding. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it takes me a minute to get used to it, right? I can't even wrap my head around it, right? Light reveals, like I can see everything. Years ago, I was at a really cool camp up in California. And in California, there are bears. You go up in the mountains and there are bears. And typically they leave you alone. And so we're at this camp and we're all huddled around a campfire. And when you huddle around a campfire, you see the light of the campfire. But if you turn and you look out everywhere else, it's completely pitch black, right? And so we're getting ready to close out the evening, and we're gonna go back to our cabins and our places where we're going to sleep. And I hear this rustling in the background, and I'm kind of like, what is that? And I was fairly new to California at the time, and several people who had been California natives were like, don't worry about it, just go back to your cabin, just go back to what you were doing, and just don't worry about it. So I'm like, curiosity killed the cat. So I'm like, I can't not wonder what it is and not figure it out. So I had a flashlight, and I took the flashlight and I flashed it over to where I heard it, and there was bears. It's like light reveals. Light revealed, probably at the time, one of my biggest fears of being in the woods with a bear, because I didn't know what to do. And so I just nonchalantly took the flashlight off and went back about my business and went back to my cabin where I was safe and secure. Light reveals. And that's exactly what John's going to do for us. But what's interesting is he also helps us see how others reacted, because the opposite is true, right? So on one hand, we see that light reveals something, right? And sometimes that revelation is too bright. Like when you first turn a light on and it's dark outside, it's too much. It takes time to get adjusted. But it's interestingly enough, when you spend enough time in the light and you turn that light off, it's suddenly too dark. And you notice how dark it actually is. And if we're in the darkness too much, our eyes start to adjust. And so what John's going to do for us is help us see and help us understand what that actually looks like. So let's take a look at what John actually says in the very beginning of his gospel. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God at the beginning. All things were created through him, and apart from him, not one thing was created that has been created. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. That light shines in the darkness, and yet the darkness did not overcome it. Okay? And he goes on in verse 8. He was not the light, but talking about John the Baptist, he was not the light, but he came to testify about the light. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, Jesus, and the world was created through him, and yet the world didn't recognize him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. John is trying to get us to understand this is the pretext for the coming of Jesus, right? Jesus is the light of the world. We've heard that 100 times. If you've been spending any time in Christian circles, you've heard that 100 times. Jesus is the light of the world. So there's a few things that we want to make sure we understand from this passage. Number one is John is affirming exactly who Jesus is. Jesus is the light of the world. Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus is the creator of all things. Jesus was there in the beginning. Jesus is God. All those things that John wants to make sure that we understand. Number two, John also wants us to see people rejecting the very thing that will save them. People in Israel were waiting so long for a savior. They're waiting so long for someone to reign on the throne in Jerusalem like David did and deliver the people from Roman rule and reestablish Israel as this wonderful, perfect nation that honors God and all these wonderful things. And here is Jesus, the one who's actually going to do more than they could even possibly imagine. And yet they reject the very thing that's going to save them. And finally, the third thing is the absolute divine transformation that happens as a result of the light that has come into the world. So not only is John casting a light on our sin and our need for rescue, he's showing us that Jesus is the actual rescue that has come to save us. So what John is doing is he's challenging his readers to see Jesus as he actually ought to be seen, not to make him into something else. And so that's my same challenge to you. Is we've explored faith, and now we're going to explore Jesus. And are you willing to see him for who he actually is? Are you going to let John shed light on your sin and my sin and everybody else, but also that Jesus is the answer for that sin and that Jesus is the light that actually cleanses that sin? Because, people always say the best disinfectant is truth, right? The best remedy for something that is wrong is the thing that is right. And so that's exactly what John is trying to do with Jesus, trying to help us see who he actually is so that we understand who we actually are and our need for him. So as we explore this, I want you to subscribe and I want you to put the little bell thing on there so you're reminded when we post a new one, because we're going to walk through this. And I challenge you to be open and honest about where you are in your life and how Jesus can invade your life and be the light in your life.